Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Conversations with Khulisa Mfazi. If you're wondering who this familiar face is, I'm sure you know it. If you're a Vidsi, if you're planning to go to Vids, I'm sure her name will come up in your journey. Today, we are talking to Sisanda Aluta Mbolekwa. She's my absolute fave. I adore her. I literally look up to her bravery, her leadership. But she'll introduce herself in a moment. Sisanda, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. So I didn't want to really introduce you. I wanted to read your bio, but I think it will serve better if you really tell people who you are, what you do, and the impact that you've made in at least, the student governance side of things.
Okay, so as you've said, my name is Sisanda Aluta Mbolekwa.
Yeah.
I'm currently a political reporter at the Sunday Times.
Ooh. Big things.
I studied journalism honors, majoring in television journalism at Wits. I just happen to be in print now, but that's what I studied.
Yeah.
I also have an undergrad in media and politics.
Yeah.
And I also was an SRC president at the University of the Witwatersrand in the year 2018/2019.
I hope you guys saw that little chuckle she made when she started talking about her SRC reign. Let us talk about your name first things first, right? You said your name is Sisanda Aluta Mbolekwa. Aluta is a name that holds so much power, so much weight in our country, in politics. Not yet, you know that song, not yet Uhuru.
Yes.
Aluta.
Yes.
That's where I learned the name Aluta, or the word Aluta in that song. Tell us more about it and tell us more why it represents who you are and your journey in your life.
All right, so the name Aluta, I was given the name by my father. He happened to be a police captain by trade, and also was a workers' rep through the trade union. He was the provincial secretary at the time of his passing, and he was very involved in politics and shaping the politics of the country, particularly as an activist. Back in the day, when I was born, he decided to name me Aluta, much to my mother's protest, because she was like, I will not allow you to plunge my child through the same life path that you've chosen. But nonetheless, he won that battle and the name landed up on my ID. Growing up, I used to think it was a very heavy sort of name or title or banner to carry.
Sure.
Of course, we all know that names mean things, words mean things.
Of course.
And once you name a child something, it's either they'll follow the meaning of the name or they'll go completely opposite that direction. So I always felt as though in choosing my life path, in carving out who I wanted to be, I had this sort of burden of this name that it needs to mean something. There's a reason why I was named this. So I think it played a huge role in shaping out my interests, the spaces I found myself in life, and the person I turned out to be.
So I grew up doing Setswana first additional language, and the thing that you talk about, it's called Lina Lile Borelong. So it means that your name is what you have embodied in your life. Your name is who you are, and you've lived up to your name. Do you think that you've lived up to the name Aluta?
I think I tried my best in the most sincerest way. Being named Aluta obviously had a lot to do with my father's political bearing at the time and what he wanted my life to embody. But Aluta, as we all know, loosely means the struggle continues. Right? And I mean, life has proven to be a struggle, but I think just the significance of the name has always reminded me that I'm not here on earth to just live, breathe and die. That there needs to be some sort of impact that I leave behind, some sort of legacy that I can point to and say, this is my why. This is why I did it. This is why I was my father's daughter.
Let's talk about your reign, your SRC. Since we're talking about, the struggle continues and we're talking about politics, I think let's talk about your reign as former SRC president. First things first, how did you pick up that student politics is your thing and that's something that you want to do in your life?
So I didn't necessarily get to varsity thinking it would be my thing.
Okay.
I remember my parents sat me down upon going to university. My mother was like, please
Stay
do me
away.
a favor. Stay safe.
Okay.
Read your books, pass and get out of there.
Yeah.
She used to even say, "Anfunum danos abangumeli sizwe mna," the one who stands for the nation. She's like, you're there for your own life. Get in there, get what you need, and get out.
Yeah.
My dad, on the other hand, was like, there's no way. I mean, I matriculated 2015 at the height of the student fees must fall protests.
Yeah.
So we're there writing finals and we're seeing protest action on television.
Yeah.
My mother's busy second guessing this decision to go take me to Wits. My father's saying that's exactly where you should be.
Yeah.
You know? So I came to Wits thinking, okay, I think I can navigate this.
Yeah.
Let me get to university, figure out my strengths, my talents, what I'm interested in, before deciding to plunge myself into the world of student politics.
Yeah.
I then remember saying to my father, I wanted to do Wits choir. I wanted to do like music and like artsy fun stuff, you know. And he said to me, I'm not paying for those clubs and societies unless you sign up for SASCO. So if you sign up for SASCO and NC Youth League,
hilarious.
then I will pay for your Wits choir and your other fun extramural activities. So
Okay.
I then reached that compromise with him and I had signed up. I then remember him checking up on me to say, are you going to PGMs? What are the students saying? What's happening on the ground?
Oh gosh.
So I'd rally up my friends to come with me to just go check out what the SASCO is, you know, what they do and what it's like. Also, so I can report back to Dad and say, I actually went.
Sure.
So I'm using your money wisely.
Yeah.
I'd get there, sit through political dialogue and lectures and just student leaders debating and stuff.
Yeah.
But my most interesting part at the time would be when they break out into song and siyakuicha and,
Sure.
you know. So I was this little first year scrambling to get into the middle of the circle to lead songs because, I mean, that's the only part where I feel like I can contribute.
Sure.
Because I didn't know what the organization was at the time. I remember a couple of months later, I was elected into the SASCO branch executive committee. Crazy.
Big things.
Crazy stuff. I remember when we were elected, when they were calling, because I had just walked in, like those
Sure.
random Saturdays where I just go. And I get there, they're calling for office bearers, and people
Okay.
are voting. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what this is. Okay, so there's a chair, there's a deputy, there's a, you know.
Sure.
And they get to the office bearers, the portfolios. They're like, okay, an agenda and transformation officer. The chairperson at the time starts to motivate. We need a very young, vibrant person. And I think we've seen her. She's young. She's full of ideas. Because I didn't know what meeting decorum was. I just say things sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, but I think we should look at it this way. Or I think maybe that's not the best way to do it.
Sure.
But not using the correct terminology at the time. Which used to leave me feeling out of place. But I must say my inputs were never not valued.
Yeah.
In the same breath. So because of those inputs I'd made, I guess, and the singing and the whatever, when the time came to elect a new executive, someone nominated my name.
Yeah.
Everyone looked at me and I was like, okay, what do I say? Someone's like, you're available. So I'm like, okay, I'm available. And they were like, okay, congratulations, you're the new gender and transformation officer.
Awesome.
I think I just happened to live at a all-woman res at the time, Sunnyside residence. So it just sort of made sense.
Yeah.
I remember saying, okay, so these are the changes I want. I want a SASCO that's like appealing to first years.
Okay.
So you guys must stop this whole comrade thing you've got going on, because as an outsider, it's not easy to come into the space.
Got you.
I'm like, also these guijas you guys just sing randomly. We need to have a song booklet with lyrics for students.
Got you though.
I came up with all these crazy ideas. I used to host these talks,
Yeah.
invite feminists to come and speak to young women on campus,
Yeah.
do pad drives, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I must say I had a good time as a BEC member in the portfolio of gender and transformation. I think from there my activism went to school council.
Yeah.
We had school council elections. I was elected as a secretary of the School of Literature, Language and Media.
Okay.
I think that's what it's called. Vitsies, don't come for me if I've made a mistake. SLLM. That's
Okay.
what it was. I was a secretary there. And the following year, I ran for my house committee
Yeah.
elections. I was an elected deputy chairperson of my residence, vice chair. And then, I contested the SRC elections as a sitting vice chair of Sunnyside Residents. And then, we got in.
So let's talk about, so you hold a BA Honours majoring in television journalism.
No, BA Honours in Media and Politics.
In Media and Politics? Yes.
Yeah, and then a BA Honours in Journalism majoring in television.
Got you. You guys heard that. Got you. The question I want to ask you is, how was the balance between school, being a student and getting out of there, so getting your degree and getting out of there, and all this time that you were pouring into activism and student activism? How was it balancing between school versus student governance?
I think it was challenging at times, but it was a very interesting journey because what I was studying and the life I was leading on campus weren't opposed to each other. In fact, they really aligned.
Yeah.
So I went to Wits University wanting to become a journalist.
Yeah.
A broadcaster, news reporter person,
Yeah.
right, at the end of it all. So media worked for me because I got to keep that interest alive.
Yes.
At the same time, with me venturing into student politics, I was studying politics. So the theorists we'd learn about in class are the same theorists or former activists that comrades would quote, when making or stating their cases in political dialogue. So I think it was a very, very nice way to weave the two.
100%.
I was one of the fortunate people where sort of what I was studying and the life I was carving out for myself just gelled.
Yeah.
I remember there were people who were in engineering and medicine who were in student politics. I know for them it was more tough because of the kind of life that, or the kind of student life that your studies require you to lead on campus, and how it may not easily be amenable to being available for meetings that end at 4 a.m.
Sure.
Protests that start at 6 a.m. when you start shutting down. It just wasn't, it didn't work out well for everyone. It wasn't as seamless, rather, for everyone. But I think with me, the two made sense.
And you killed it.
And it was, an interesting journey.
In the beginning of our conversation, you note your dad a lot. You talk about your dad a lot. You hold him at a very high regard. You respect him. There's love in your tone when you talk about your dad and the influence he had on you and your life. Those who follow you, those who know you personally, also know that you lost your father, at a time of your life. Let's talk a little bit about that, if you're comfortable. Let's talk a little bit about that. And, grief, how you've been dealing with grief, especially for a man that you love so much. Yeah.
Oh, Dad.
Yeah.
Dad was my everything. I think also in the afterlife still is. That was like my real life superhero. Everything I did in life was because, he would appreciate it, or he would agree, or he wanted it, or, we planned it together.
Sure.
And I think we've always had a very tight father-daughter bond.
Yeah.
Very tight. Everyone who knows me or knew him knows that it was the case for the both of us. And I think even with wanting to be a journalist or a newsreader, broadcaster, it was because, so I'd grown up wanting to be the president of the country.
Ooh,
that's what I told my grade 1 teacher.
Amazing.
That's what I told my grade 1 teacher. Which then later changed when my dad used to go away for these conferences and congresses and just always be busy around the country. So he was an avid reader of the news.
Yeah.
My dad's the type to put on the 7 o'clock bulletin and be catching up on the newspaper at the same time.
Yeah, I know that thing. Yeah.
Avid reader of the news. He knew what was happening with current affairs. He was just always so clued up.
Yeah.
But I knew whatever happened in his life, he'd always sit down in front of the television and watch the evening news bulletin. So part of why I wanted to become a news reader or news anchor was that wherever he is, wherever Dad is, I know he'll sit down and open the TV. And I wanted to be me reading the news back to him.
That's amazing.
Very silly reason why I went to the profession,
no, not
but
at all.
I think it's worked out quite okay.
Yeah.
So that's what inspired the career. We then carved it together, job shadowing. He was just always there for me.
Yeah.
I speak the whole night if I were to speak about Dad. But his passing did do a number on me. I always say I was just never the same.
Yeah.
I always say to people, imagine being a daddy's girl without a dad. That's
Oh, I'm sorry.
a very foreign concept.
Yeah.
It means having to reimagine the world and how you navigate it without your pillar, which is very crazy. There are days where I still wake up and I'm out of breath at the thought of the pain and having to exist without this person. So there are days where I'm existing in delusion. He's gone to a conference somewhere and he'll come back. Because what do you mean I have to exist in a world that doesn't have him in it? That would break my heart. I'd probably be admitted somewhere. So for us to function like everyone else, let's just create this reality. But yeah, grief, it hasn't been an easy journey. I lost him during 2020, during COVID.
Yeah.
I think one of the first waves.
Yeah.
When none of us understood what this disease was and what happened. I mean, he tested at the doctor today. 2 days later, he was gone.
Yeah.
We didn't know what this was and what it meant and what do you mean, you know. It's been a very difficult journey, but I must thank my mother for stepping up and pulling the family together. I know it hasn't been easy for her. I mean, she lost the love of her life. I mean, if I speak of my dad this dearly, can you imagine
how she does.
as his partner, you know? Yeah, I think it's been a very difficult one, but she's done her absolute best.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the days aren't the same. It'll hit you when the milestones come. So his birthday, my birthday is always terrible now since he's passing. He used to call me at midnight.
Oh, man.
Even if we're in the same house, he'd literally call me and stand outside my bedroom door and say, I need to be the first to wish you happy birthday because I brought you into this earth.
Yeah.
You know, so every time my birthday comes, I hate it. Because sometimes a part of me sits there waiting for the phone to ring. So, yeah, it's quite difficult. But I think my mother has done her best to weave the family together. We're a family of 3 girls, 1 boy, the last born.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty tight.
Okay.
I mean, we were tight when Dad was around, but I think we're tighter than ever
now
because we're like,
also.
to deal and get through this. I don't know if we'll ever get through it, but to function in the world like everyone else, I think relying on each other has been the best thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Man, I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry. Yeah. Let's go a bit into now the world of journalism. So you start with student activism, you graduate with your honors, and you decide that I'm now going to pursue journalism. Like you've said, you know, this has always been your dream. How have the two worlds kind of come together? You know, you write for South Africa's biggest publication, to be quite one of South Africa's biggest publications. And how are the two worlds kind of like weaving in together?
So when I was in my honors year doing journalism at Wits, it's a very small class, a class of like 20, 25 max. And part of the requirements of the course is to run the campus publication, so the student newspaper.
Okay.
And at the same time, I was SRC president, which meant half the activities on campus I'm probably planning, speaking at or involved in directly or indirectly. And now on the other end, I'm having to fulfill my academic requirements by reporting on events that happen on campus.
Okay.
So now it can't be that I organize a dialogue and here I am speaking at the dialogue and rushing to write about what was said at the dialogue, and it just didn't work. And that's what I think scared me a lot. There was a point in my life where I was like, what if this doesn't work out? What is to become of me? I think at that point I was not sure which path I really, really wanted to rely on and to choose, which made it quite difficult. I mean, that was one of the most difficult years of my life, balancing both. Both my academics and my passion, journalism, which is why I got to the institution. And at the same time, the responsibility of caring for, it was, I think, 35,000 students at the time. Which leaves one with sleepless nights, thinking and worrying about students, whether they're fed, whether they're housed, whether they're clothed, whether they're passing and doing well at school. Very difficult journey. But I think with the help of friends at the time, family, comrades even, I managed to balance until the end. I then got an internship at Arena Holdings. I was an intern there in 2020.
Awesome.
which is the same company I work for now.
Okay.
Yeah, so as an intern, as an editorial intern, we rotated among different publications. So I think that was a nice experience. It was a nice eye-opener into the world of journalism.
Yeah.
But at the same time, part of me was always quite unsettled because, yes, I happen to write well, but that's not what I majored in.
Sure.
And it just seemed as though like I wasn't getting
Sure.
the opportunity to do what I entered the profession for.
Sure.
I then I didn't finish my internship. I think in the 8th month, this is shortly after Dad's passing.
Yeah.
I got a job offer at the city of Johannesburg.
Oh, okay.
Now it seemed as though I was crossing the fence now to go and work in a politician's office.
Yes.
Be a staffer, create the programs that journalists are going to report on. Essentially, be involved in political strategy, all of that. And I think, a part of me felt like I was betraying who I am at the time.
Yeah.
How is it that I said I've devoted my heart to journalism, but now I'm crossing the floor, crossing the bench, and doing the total opposite. Basically, some would call it being a spin doctor.
Yeah.
I was a media liaison officer at the time, a specialist at the time. But I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. I think it came at a time where the then mayor had trusted a lot of young people who I came from the student ranks with.
Yeah.
And we ushered us into the city of Johannesburg, entrusted us with local government, of which all of us were just kids at the time. Smart, educated, yes, but we had little to no experience and we were thrust into the deep end. And I think we survived. I think we did pretty well at the time. With political instability and things changing, we were thrust into unemployment. That happened. 130 of us were left destitute, which was a very, very heavy moment again. One of the moments in my life where I wish Dad was around.
Yeah.
He'd know how to navigate this. He'd know how to get me out of this slump.
Yeah.
And then one day I got a phone call from one of my editors who said, "Hi, Aluta, what are you doing with your life?" I was like, oh my goodness, I'm actually just sitting on my bed right now.
Chilling.
I ain't got no job. And he's like, we do this thing of grooming people when they're interns and then we let them wander off. Then when we have openings, we don't go back and check on the talent that we've groomed. So, would you like to come in for a chat? Let's see.
Yeah.
Came in for a chat. Lo and behold, was hired again at the Sunday Times as a political reporter. It's been quite a journey.
That is amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's been quite a journey. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I think I had lost my passion for, your why are you alive?
Yes.
That question, that feeling.
Your why.
The thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. I think I'd lost it. Particularly at the city. I was just working because people must work. Ngapha, I'm grieving.
Yeah.
Ngapha, it's more money than what I was getting as an intern. So it just seemed like the responsible thing to do now that we're less one family member, you know. It means I got to help mom out, with my younger siblings. But at the same time, I'd lost me. I'd lost my why.
Okay.
So with coming back into the industry, I think I was overjoyed. I now know why my heart beats. And I think it's so rare and I'm so grateful that I have discovered a profession that I can speak about like this.
Yeah.
Many young people don't get that opportunity. And that's why I will always remain grateful that I was able to discover something that makes my heart beat faster.
Yeah.
Something that I really enjoy doing. And I don't view the hours at work as, oh my word, it's just hours, I'm just working for a salary. No, it's country duty for me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to be back in the industry.
Let's talk about that a little bit, right? We're going to wrap up our conversation very soon. So let's move, because one thing about us, we will talk. But let's talk about that a little bit. So you talk about that a lot of young people can't really have a career that falls right in alignment with their passion, right? How have you, so it's one thing, it's one thing to be really grateful for it, but how would you actually advise a young person that this is maybe the trail you need to walk in life in order for you to fulfill your passion? Because, one thing about passion is a lot of young people are discouraged from it because it won't give you money. There's a lot of I think, preconceived notions about just following your passion. So how would you advise young people to live in alignment with their purpose, live in alignment with what they want to do and their passion, while also making a little bit of money from it? What would you tell a young person to do to achieve that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things I'll say is we should not be afraid of silence. Because that's when you get to be alone with your thoughts and you get to actually really understand who you are and what you're interested in.
100%.
I remember from my busy SRC period, which I think was a very overwhelming season for me, I took a step back. I was just tired of the hypervisibility and I just wanted just to be quiet, just to align and say, okay, now that we've passed the era of Sisanda Aluta, the SRC president, who am I now? What is to become of the next chapter of my life?
Okay.
And it's only in that moment of stillness that I got to uncover what it is that I went into all these other different spaces originally with. So I think we should not be afraid of silence. We should not be afraid to go against the grain. We exist with people, right? Family, friends, people who share opinions on the decisions you should be making, the kind of life you should be leading.
100%.
But at the same time, you go to bed with yourself at the end of the day. And if you're not content, then it's not worth it, you know? So I think it's very important in order for you to align, to take a step back.
Yeah.
To sit with yourself and your thoughts. I know thoughts can be very scary sometimes. I know sometimes I always say, you are not thoughts namhlanje and thoughts because it's a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Right? But sometimes it is important to sit and reconcile with those thoughts, no matter how busy they are, because only then will you find the still and the clear.
Sure.
And just uzbuze the difficult questions. Ndifuna ntoni ebomini? When they read my
100%.
obituary one day, what do I want to be remembered as? And it's only in asking yourself those very difficult questions that you'll find your reason, you'll find your why.
Sure.
And then it just takes determination to just go for it.
Sure.
Despite the naysayers, despite the criticism, despite the whatever. I was just very grateful to have a support system that's solid. A family that believed in what I wanted to do, even when it just didn't seem like it was working out.
Sure.
But it takes determination and saying, "Diaifuna lento." Also, I'm a firm believer of. There's a reason why, because my journalism dream used to haunt me, right?
Yeah.
And people say you use of words, but when I say haunt, I mean in the literal sense. And I remember always telling myself that there's a reason why I'm feeling this way. There's a reason why my gut moves this way.
Yeah.
And that God wouldn't plant a seed or idea in my head and in my heart if he was not going to see it to fruition.
100%.
So mine is to just be still, remain faithful, and put in the hard work. Where God takes me, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable sitting in the back seat because I know the driver.
Of course.
Exactly. So I think that's what always was
beautiful.
my guiding pillar as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your reign, SRC president. What are some issues that you feel that were not really... You don't have to, don't put anyone in the dustbin, so like, let's be good.
Yeah.
But what are some issues that you think students really deal with that were not really put in the spotlight? Some of those like day-to-day kind of problems that you were dealing with, that you realize that actually a lot of students are going through this thing, but people are not seeing. Is there anything that would come to your mind when I ask you this?
So a lot, right? And I think I'll name like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
There's this very busy January period with registration and people not knowing whether they've been accepted. Some have been excluded, and people just scrambling and fighting to get back into the institution, right?
Yeah.
I remember a student coming into my office and struggling to speak to me. And upon asking them that what is the issue, the student told me they hadn't eaten in 2 days.
Oh, shame.
So how is it that we're going to sit and have a conversation about how I can assist you academically when your stomach is grumbling? Do you know what I mean? So I think student hunger is a big thing on campus. I mean, there are initiatives that try and bridge that gap, but I still think it is a major issue that people do not speak of.
Sure.
It's like it's a shame. How dare I speak of indlalayam on campus when my peers are driving cars that I can only wish to drive in the future. So how do I say diceli banana. I have not eaten in the past 24 hours when there's this stark contrast of realities on campus. So I think student hunger is a big one.
Okay.
And also femicide on campus. Women are not safe
Of
at
course.
all on campus. I remember in my year, that's the year where the tragedy befell Uyinene.
Yes.
And there was that campus-wide or country-wide protests or demonstrations at all campuses. Yes. And I think we had that very big moment where we highlighted the issue, and our, GBV sort of organizations on campus or centers gave us an ear and listened to us at the time. But I don't think we've managed to maintain the traction following that.
Of course.
I don't think women students are safe on campus any safer than they were at the time. I don't think any strides have been taken to ensure that we balance the dynamics on campus. Sure, we always say campus is a microcosm of society, and that we're all people who come from our different communities with our different realities, and now we're forced to coexist in this space. But there needs to be some gender education and training to say it might have been okay where you come from to raise your voice to a woman or to attempt to slap her, but here we will not tolerate that 100%. On our campus, and this is our new social order. So I think a lot of training needs to be done on that front, and safe spaces need to be cultivated for women. Also in terms of me reporting, not just a lecturer who's abused me, but a fellow student. Or student leader. I need to know that I'm safe, and I need to trust the justice system on campus. And I think as much as we do not trust it in South Africa, I think the same reality exists on campuses where there's no throughput rate of convictions and people actually facing the might of the law for whatever transgressions they may have committed. So I think the safety of women on campus is a big one.
Okay.
If I can think of the third one, it will always be the fees.
Of course.
It will always be fees.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Fees.
From first year to postgrad. Fees and funding remains a crisis in the country. Our institutions meant to help bridge the gap, like NSFAS, are failing. They are being corrupted daily. There's just no trust in these institutions to bridge the gap and do the job that they were meant to do. So I think it's time that we revive the clarion call for actual free education, not a state-delivered bursary in the form that NSFAS is right now, but just a total scrap fees. Because education is a right, not a fun to have.
I hear you.
So I think it's about time that the current generation, because we have passed the time, the current generation just revives that. I know it's difficult. I know it is. I wouldn't wish the life of a student activist on anyone. It's a very tough journey that strips you bare, essentially, because of how demanding it is. But I do implore the current generation, pick up the baton. It'll always be difficult, but we'll be here cheering you on from the sidelines and agitating in the spaces that we now find ourselves in. But I think the clarion call for free education, free and decolonized education, needs to be picked up again.
Of course, of course. Let's just wrap up quickly.
Sure.
That was beautiful. I'm just taken aback. I love listening. I love talking, but I love listening more. I think your life is so awesome. Like I was telling you earlier, it's so awesome. It's so exciting.
Thank you very much.
And I think that's really cool. To wrap up, let's give some advice to young girls. I always ask this question. I know, but let's give some advice to young girls who are struggling to fit in the space that they believe that they should be in. As Black women, we are stripped of our accolades as soon as we walk in a room because you're a Black woman. People feel like, they feel like we don't deserve to be in that room. Society deems us as inadequate. And what advice would you give to a young girl who feels that, who, is not strong enough to kind of surpass that, but really feels that? What's some advice that you'd give, either a student or just a young Black woman just trying to fight her way into life?
Okay. So I think I've got a contrasting view on that.
Okay.
If my mother's generation fought and fought earnestly, why should I still be fighting? as coming after her. I'm of the view that we should take away the responsibility of the current generation in terms of we're always fighting, man.
Yeah.
Day in, day out, we're fighting to be alive. We're fighting to be recognized.
Sure.
We are fighting to be heard.
Sure.
I think it's about time that women that have come before us who fought the good fight, when they reach the top, that they extend the ladder. It will hurt nothing to throw the rope back in and say, because I have fought in this manner and I've made it here, nalusiba.
Sure.
Now this is my way of saying I'm extending. Exactly. Sure. Because we do this thing of girl bossing, and my goodness, if done wrong, it irritates me.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with showing up and showing off,
of course,
and being your best at all times. But at the same time, it sells a false illusion that we are these beings that just don't rest. We don't get tired. We are mpokotos. We are rocks. I'm not a rock. I will bleed.
Yeah.
Don't provoke me.
100%.
You know? So I don't get the need to constantly be showing off all the time. We are vulnerable. We have our most sincere moments. And I think those should be allowed. But that only comes with the recognition that sometimes we just can't do it all. And we need a helping hand. So I think it's about time that because in every other race, they help each other. 100%. No one gets to where they want to be because I fought.
Of
this
course.
Fighting is just a ring fence for black women. You know what I mean?
100%.
And I think it's a culture that we need to unlearn. And we need to adopt a new strategy of, if I've been able to tread down this path, and I can tell there's a pothole there, there's a dog there, and this is how to navigate through this jungle. What stops me from telling the next woman what to avoid?
100%.
And how to easily tread the same path without making the same mistakes I did? Nothing.
Yeah.
But we just don't do it. It's because I fought and I was the first black woman, whatever. They must also suffer, as if that's a test of excellence. As if that's a test of your worth once you get to the space. I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to that school of thought.
I agree.
I think once you get up there, you better extend that ladder back down.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your journey has been in vain. You might be the first black whatever, and kudos to you, but it means nothing for those who are coming after you.
Yeah.
If you do not do your bit to contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I like you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Conversations with Khulisa Mfazi. We were sitting with Sisanda Aluta Mbolekwa. I want to keep this conversation going. I want to keep it flowing. We'll find another time also to have another conversation, because I think we've left some things unsaid. Do you know what I mean? But once again, like I said, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.
Thank you so much for having me.